Why, hello there. Welcome to my father's private office, or snuggery, as he called it. He would spend countless hours with his personal secretary, Mr. Joseph Stanley Brown, as they would go through letters of correspondence for my father's presidential election campaign of 1880. So many fond memories I have of my father. Like my favorite photograph of my father and I. It reminds me of a time when we lived in Washington, D.C. He was a member of the House of Representatives for the state of Ohio, and he would work long hours. Oh, how I missed him so. And so the moment that he came through the door, he would say, "Where's Pop's whack?" And I would jump up and say, "Here's Pop's whack." I know what you must be thinking. Whack? Well, if you must know, the Garfields love their nicknames. And I came by mine, honestly. As when I was very little, I used to bump into things and whack myself. So I earned the nickname Mollie Whack. Oh, what fond memories I have. It wasn't always fun and games, of course. My father was very serious. And rightfully so. He was always concerned about my health. You see, my oldest sister, Eliza, or Little Trot, passed away when she was only 3 years old of diphtheria. It was a devastating tragedy for my family. And then years later, my youngest brother, Nettie, he passed away of whooping cough, and he was only nearly 2. So my father was always very cautious with me and mindful of my health and well-being. You can imagine his fear and trepidation when he heard that I almost fell off my best horse, Kit. Everything was fine and dandy as we were trotting along until suddenly Kit, he just bolted. And there I was, hanging off of Kit, dangling just by a stirrup, my foot entangled in the stirrup. This went on for several minutes. I was terrified. Luckily, my older brother Jim rescued me. Needless to say, I never got on another horse for the rest of my life. And oh, how worried my father was. So many fond memories that I have. Like this locket. This locket that I wear, even now as an adult, was a gift from my mother and father. A Christmas gift. And attached to the locket was a letter. I shall read that letter to you. It says, "This locket which Christmas brings you is your first introduction to that series of delights in the way of jewelry, which rightly belongs to women. It carries with it a reminder of your duty to learn to be gentle. We ask you to begin with gaining that sweet quality which Shakespeare attributes to noble women, a voice gentle and low. And we hope your gifts of sweetness will more than keep up with the gifts which many happy Christmases will bring. Study this letter, darling, and with it, accept the deep love of Papa and Mama." Enclosed in the locket, I keep a picture of my father and my husband, Mr. Joseph Stanley Brown. I do recall the day where my father got news that he would become the 20th president of the United States. So much like we had done before, we moved back to Washington, D.C., to the executive mansion. And he would work long hours. Oh, how our family was so proud of him. I don't think any one of us could have imagined that 4 months into his presidential term, a mentally unstable man named Charles Guiteau would decide to shoot my father at a train depot. We were panic-stricken when we heard. He was rushed to the executive mansion, surrounded by countless doctors. Days, weeks turned into months as they searched for the bullet. I sat at his bedside with my mother every day as his temperature would rise and fall, and pray that he would get better. He would continue to tell me to be brave. I could not possibly imagine that on September 19th, 1881, at 10:35, my father would pass away from an infection. He could not be saved. I was only 14 years old. We had to move back to the Mentor farm without him. We had to figure out what life was going to be like in this house without his booming voice and laughter. I am so grateful for Mr. Joseph Stanley Brown as he helped my family during such a tragic time. It was about a year after my father's death that I wrote a journal entry about Mr. Joseph Stanley Brown. It's dated October 29th. Oh, journal, if you knew how blue and lonely I get now and then, and last week nearly every day, I had a fit of the down in the dumps. I don't know, but the main reason is that I miss Mr. Brown so much. I know it's awfully foolish and silly for me to think so much about him, but I just can't help it. I talked to Pug, my best friend, about it, and she said she didn't see why I couldn't miss a person I like as much as I wanted to, even if that person was a man. Oh, such fond memories I have of this room, my father, Mr. Joseph Stanley Brown. I can't thank you enough for stopping by, and I do hope to see you again soon.